Hello friends, ready for another incredible story? Let's go. In the year million, countless races invaded the Blue Star, which became the battlefield of the Super Era. At the beginning of the war, humans also awakened abilities and attributes, but since they were few, they were at a disadvantage. Using weapons and nuclear bombs, humans managed to build only 10 lines of defense and barely resisted the attacks of the year million. During these 10 years, many of these human defenses had already fallen, and the defeat of the human race was becoming more imminent. In a desperate situation, humans could only resist the attacks of the year million with what they had at hand. According to statistics, since the beginning of this war, more than 1 million soldiers from the Eastern Alliance's frontline had already died. Now, with weapons running out and the increase of attribute bearers, countries began to rely on them to support the battlefield. And so, in the year million, the greatest call in the history of the HUA Empire began. This is the industrial city on the northern border of the Eastern Alliance. A voice announces a soldier with his photo. He is Chan Guahai, 19 years old, killed on the 10th line of defense against the year million, bearer of the level 2 electric attribute, died fighting a rotten giant. Then another soldier is announced, Sulai, 22 years old, killed on the 9th line of defense, bearer of the level 3 fire attribute, carrying a large amount of explosives with him, and his explosion destroyed the year million bridge. The veteran mayor gives the speech, continuing by saying that behind him is the list of soldiers who died on the front line last month. These are our comrades and family, our brothers and sisters, says the veteran mayor. With a very emotional cry, he continues saying that the soldiers were also heroes of Yi City and the HUA Empire. While everyone is emotional, the veteran president says, it has been a few months since the 9th line of defense fell. If the 10,000 races continue to advance and pass through the defenses, the industrial city will be the first to suffer. We have no time to flee. Now, the Eastern Alliance is about to gather 1 million individuals with supernatural abilities for a counterattack against the 10,000 races. The veteran president shouts, "What will you young people of Yi City do?" And they all respond together. "Protect our home, our mountains and rivers," they said with great bravery. At that moment, all the soldiers started shouting repeatedly, "Enlist, enlist." The young people began to approach the man responsible for enlistments, saying they wanted to enlist, and one said he wanted to go to the front line to kill the enemy. Amid the desperate crowd, there was a young man who remained quiet. The man enlisting the youth stamped many enlistment papers every moment, always calling for the next to enlist, until it was Nanzi's turn, and he approached the man's desk. The man began to state Nanzi's characteristics. Name is Nanzi, from Yi City, 20 years old, still with no awakened talent, currently a student at the Architecture University in Yi City Industrial University. Then the man asked if he wanted to enlist for the front line. Nanzi simply replied no, and that he chose to stay behind in the logistics part. The other young people were furious with what they heard and said that logistics is for women, children, and the elderly, and that this is cowardice. The man loudly said to Nanzi, "You are in good health and have excellent grades, and more than that, the front line needs people. At the time our nation needs to survive the most, will you turn your back? Have you forgotten what the 10,000 races are doing to our compatriots?" Nanzi said he hadn't forgotten, but that he had already made his choice. A young man angrily shouted, asking if Nanzi was still the same Nanzi who saved his classmates during the Beast Wave. Suddenly, everyone heard a voice telling them to calm down. It was the veteran president, who said that enlistment was not mandatory, that it was more about personal willingness and a sense of responsibility. He looked at the paper with Nanzi's information and said that he could stay in the rear, but it was a pity because Nanzi's grades were very good. Then he asked Nanzi to take his paper and leave. Nanzi started to leave, and there was a crowd of angry young people around him, some calling him a coward, and others saying that it was because of people like Nanzi that the human race was in this situation. So Nanzi moved away from the crowd while some still called him a coward and said they didn't want to see him again. The next day, there were many war helicopters flying over the sky, and the young people were very confident, saying that victory was theirs, while in the background, a crowd of citizens supported them like a great audience. Nanzi observed the euphoria from afar, and at that moment, his phone rang, signaling some notifications. The news that he had refused to enlist and join the others on the front line spread quickly, and everyone was talking about it. Nanzi thought that they were right to enlist and that they were all heroes, but this battle was like moths going to the flame, and that 1 million troops underestimated the power of the alien races. In Nanzi's past life, he had gone to the front line to fight against the enemy. He had joined the barracks and become a respected tactical commander. While the other humans were forced to retreat step by step, Nanzi dedicated his life to studying the 5 greatest talents and eventually implanted 5 types of talent trees in himself. And while these 5 talents could be enhanced to form a synergy, they could change the course of the war. But unexpectedly, before he could complete his plan, humanity was defeated and Nanzi was killed by one of the strongest beings of the 10,000 races. Nanzi could not accept that and thought that if he had managed to improve his talents earlier, perhaps out of stubbornness or destiny, Nanzi was reborn again. And the 3 talent trees he had implanted in himself were also brought back with him entirely. There are 5 talent trees, which are Beast Domestication Talent Tree, capable of domesticating multiple beasts simultaneously, enhancing their lineages, and controlling mutant beasts. Elemental Talent Tree, mastery over forbidden elemental spells, including water, fire, phoenix, lightning, and more. The more elemental energy spent, the more powerful the spell. Azura Talent Tree, each kill strengthens Berserker amplification. Reaching ultimate focus transforms one into an Azura, capable of annihilating thousands of enemies. Formation Talent Tree, mastery over various formations with unlimited stacking capabilities, able to unleash unlimited power. Undead Talent Tree, capable of summoning the undead. The greater the cost, the stronger the summoned entities. To improve these 5 talents requires a vast amount of origin stones and time. As long as Nanzi can maximize these 5 talents and strategize from thousands of miles away, even if all 10 lines of defense collapse and Nanzi is alone, he will still be able to resist the 10,000 races and protect humanity. Now, even if I go to the battlefield, I won't be able to kill many alien races, nor will I be able to obtain enough source stones to improve my talents. I will only be risking the premature end of my talents, says Nanzi with his head down. He says that the best way to obtain a large amount of origin stones is to go to the test arena, which is full of countless mutant beasts, a perfect place to stock up on source stones for talent improvement. So Nanzi decides to go to the training arena of Yi City, saying that he needs to hurry to get the origin stones and elevate his talents. Amidst some dumpsters, a group of women are talking. One of them says, "Who would have thought that the test fields, initially created to train individuals with supernatural abilities during the first year of the War of the 10,000 Races, would still be useful today?" Another woman says, "All the children are gone, and no one comes to the test fields to train anymore." Another woman, "While taking care of all the mutant beasts there and turning them into rations for the frontline soldiers, couldn't be more perfect." Another, carrying a sack, responds that with this, they can contribute to the country. A woman on crutches warns her Aunt Wang, who is holding the sack, to be careful and not to get hurt. Mrs. Wang responds to the girl, whose name is Xiao Lu, saying that it is nothing, and that she is only worried about not delaying the supplies for the front line, wanting to complete the task this month. The woman helping Mrs. Wang carry the sack says, "Yes, it's a pity that we are all aging. We can't even lift the alloy swords correctly, and we can only deal with those fierce mutant beasts one by one slowly." One of them says that if Xiao Lu could help too, but she uses crutches. At this moment, Nanzi appears, saying hello and that he came to train in the test arena, and the women are surprised. With his hand on the back of his neck and feeling a bit nervous, he says, "You're short on staff, right? I can help you deal with the mutant beasts." Xiao Lu says that's great, and that they were just worried about that. She says she will show him the changing area, and he thanks her for her concern. Mrs. Wang wonders why a young man would go to the training arena at a time like this. Suddenly, she remembers something and immediately searches her pocket. She shows her cell phone to her colleague, saying, "He is that Nanzi who refused to go to the front line. Look at the news here." The other agrees and responds, "It's him indeed. If he's been avoiding the front line, then why is he here at the training arena?" Wang replies that maybe he is trying to make up for the guilt of dodging and living a cowardly life in the rear. The other says no one cares, as they are short of people anyway, and these beasts are very fierce, so let him try. They want to see how long this coward will last in the training field. Xiao Lu hands a sword to Nanzi, saying that this is the alloy sword used to deal with mutant beasts, and warns him that the beasts are fierce, so he should be careful. He takes the sword and thanks her. All of them watches the young man heads towards the training arena, and Xiao Lu thinks that now they can speed up the process a bit. She thinks to herself that Nanzi doesn't talk much, but is quite handsome. But her Aunt Wang says, Xiao Lu, stop daydreaming. No matter how handsome he is, he's still a coward. He is that Nanzi who didn't want to go to the front line. And the young girl, not paying much attention to her aunt, just asks if his name is Nanzi. Her aunt continues wondering how Nanzi, with his cowardice, could have the strength to deal with mutant beasts and that he will probably start crying and leave soon. At that moment, Nanzi passes through a large door, and a system is immediately activated, asking if he wants to start the test, and he confirms, saying yes. The system warns that the test will begin and for him to prepare. Immediately, a large number of monsters appear around him. Nanzi concentrates while sighing. He is ready to fight and says, let's start with the beast taming talent. After the invasion of the 10,000 races, many animals mutated and evolved due to the infusion of spiritual energy. During my previous life on the front line, we faced not only the 10,000 races but also mutant beasts. Take the umbrella bird, for example, which is known for its muscle memory. Nanzi delivers a fatal blow to one of the umbrella birds, and afterward, he obtains some origin stones. A system appears informing Nanzi of his new status concerning the beasts. Nanzi reflects that the talent upgrade mechanism must be the same as in his previous life. Just like killing an umbrella bird results in an origin stone, each time the talent increases, it allows another mutant beast to be tamed. With his face bruised, he says he can endure injuries of this degree. Once again, the monsters advance against our protagonist Nanzi, who says, if I can avoid all attacks hitting vital points, dealing with them quickly shouldn't be a problem. He engages in a fight with one of the creatures, but quickly disposes of it with a kick that destroys its head. He lands on the ground and decides to first eliminate the distractions above. Nanzi rockets between the creatures with his sword, cutting them all with a single stroke. Then the system updates once again, this time allowing 5 beasts to be tamed, and Nanzi feels relieved and says, just as I thought, efficiency has increased. But suddenly something appears behind Nanzi. This time, it's another creature, but this time 1,000 times larger than the others, seemingly a boss. Nanzi is impressed, as this is none other than the emperor of the umbrella birds, and the creature immediately attacks him. He tries to block the attack, but thinks that with his current physical condition, it will be difficult to take it down. I can't face this head-on, said Nanzi as he immediately jumped to the side, causing the creature to crash into the wall. He then concludes that he must first attack the creature's weak points. He strikes the creature but notices that its durability seems improved compared to what he remembers from his previous life. With great bravery, he leaps from the ground towards the creature. The scene now shifts to the 2 women, watching Nanzi while a voice shouts that it is time for the lunch break. Xiao Lu appears and asks if Mrs. Wang and Mrs. Li are going to the cafeteria or will eat right there. But her Aunt Wang tells her not to worry, as she wants to see how long Nanzi can last in the test. Mrs. Li suddenly becomes very nervous and says, I bet he will escape soon. The front line has been pushed to the 8th line of defense now. Our Yi City is only on the 5th, practically no different from the front line. Mrs. Wang says that they cannot allow Nanzi to cause problems there, and if he dares to run, they will stop him. Xiao Lu tries to calm the 2 women, saying that a level A test doesn't seem simpler than the front line. At this moment, the system voice announces that participant Nanzi has completed the first floor of the level A test. Mrs. Wang says that no one has completed a level so quickly, and that Nanzi must have chickened out because he couldn't complete it. But to her surprise, Nanzi appears in front of her, colliding his battered body against her face. She falls to the ground, unable to believe what her eyes are seeing. Nanzi emerges with his clothes torn and many wounds on his body, and the system updates, saying that he killed 2,000 beasts, setting a new record. The women are shocked, especially Mrs. Wang, who was the least likely to believe he could do it, asking incredulously if he passed the level A test. He responds that he did. Xiaolu says that the monster corpses will be processed at this moment. They are startled by the number of monsters to be processed. While Nanzi takes a bath, he hears a warning echoing. It is the war report, saying that the next offensive attack is about to begin. Nanzi reflects on what is happening. Level 7 Super Ability Bearer, Son of Thunder Punishment, and Level 6 Super Ability Bearer, Fire Giant, have arrived at the front line. In my previous life, the Son of Thunder Punishment and the Fire Giant would soon be defeated and perish after entering the battlefield, worsening the frontline situation with even more tragic losses afterward, Nanzi says. It won't be long until the 8th line of defense collapses. He turns off the shower, saying he needs to speed up his preparations because this is a race against time, and there is no time to rest. He needs to go to the second floor of the test arena at that exact moment. The two women push a dumpster, still intrigued by Nanzi's performance. Mrs. Wang says she didn't expect him to complete the test, and Mrs. Liu says that with those injuries, he will need a long rest. But she admits that Nanzi gave it his all because that is a test that few people can pass. Mrs. Wang says that trying to achieve too much at once isn't practical. It's better to advance step by step. Mrs. Liu wonders how long he will need to rest since he has such severe injuries. And Mrs. Wang, still being a troublemaker, responds that he might even declare himself disabled and never come back. But Nanzi was coming right towards them. And once again, she bit her tongue upon seeing Nanzi appear right in front of her. In a bad mood because all her assumptions about Nanzi were wrong, she asks what he still wants there since he just completed the first floor of the test. Nanzi responds that he is going to the second floor to continue the test. She is incredulous and says, "You're going to the second floor with those serious injuries? What are you trying to prove?" Xiaolu appears and, noticing the situation, warns him that the second floor is full of large mutants and beasts and that he should wait and find someone to help him. An older man nearby says that those bull-tiger beasts are like tanks. They are resilient. Ignoring all the warnings, Nanzi proceeds to the test arena and thanks them, but prefers to go alone. Mrs. Wang shouts at Nanzi that if he is so capable, why doesn't he go to the front line instead of showing off his abilities in training? So, all they could do was continue watching, and Xiaolu thinks it's strange for someone like Nanzi, as he doesn't seem like the type to fear death, hiding in the rear. Once again, Nanzi is in the test arena with monsters around him, and the system announces that the level on the second floor has begun. He notices that the second floor is different from the first, mainly because the pressure on the second floor is much greater. Without wasting time, he begins to strike at the creatures around him. But unexpectedly, a type of mutant buffalo hits him with a headbutt to his back, sending Nanzi to the ground. After the unexpected blow, Nanzi reflects, thinking, "I don't have an advantage in size or strength. I can't afford to take hits head-on, especially with my injuries." Nanzi says these beasts are really playing with him, but he is not the type who doesn't prepare. Then the beasts start running to attack him, but Nanzi dodges the attack by jumping over the beast. He immediately pierces the beast with his sword, making a cut. With the beast taming talent in his hand, Nanzi says, since level 2 mutant beasts are within the range of being tamed, why not tame them first and then deal with them? With that, Nanzi manages to control all the other beasts, making them crash to the ground. He says that this should keep the beasts in line and that it is time to continue leveling up, reaching level 3 at once. If you like this video, please subscribe, leave a like and comment for the next part.